So it's the 24th of June and 3 weeks has passed, and look at this tree. There is nice, fresh, young growth all over the tree now. First week of summer. Time to prune my trident maples. So we've had a bit of a cold spring, a wet spring. I think that's for most of Northwestern Europe the case. And it has taken a long time for my tridents to really start pushing. You can see the leaves are not all that happy. There's some dry tips. This could be from a late frost that we had. But now it is full of weeds. Let me remove that. And then I'll do a quick run through on how I prune these. This is a trident maple that is in the middle stage of development. So the trunk is pretty much there where I want it. There are a few big chops that I'm still closing. So I'm letting a sacrifice run. But the lower branches, I don't want to develop all that much more. The lowest might thicken up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prune the top. And then I'm going to go look at the lower branch and see how much I want to prune of it. But before I do that, let me remove some of these weeds, because this is getting ridiculous. This is all competition for water and fertilizer in the pot. And as you can see, I'm growing it in a fairly shallow pot. And this is because I'm still trying to improve the nebari. What else can you notice here? There is a big mesh here on top of this pot, and that is because I found that the birds love to steal the fertilizer, love to look for bugs, and basically they're digging in the pot, which in itself is not such a big deal, but they throw the substrate around and they take the roots out of the soil and they dry out. And I'm trying to get a better nebari, so I really want to keep all these roots in place. So as said, it's now early summer, and this for me is the optimal time to cut back a heat-loving species like trident maple. Yes, you heard that right. Trident maple is one of the maples that really enjoys the heat, the direct sun. Just water it well, fertilize it well, and it will reward you with very long extensions. My climate is actually almost too cold for a trident. I can't offer it the heat that some people can. So here they grow maybe 50, 60, 70 centimeters, say 2-3 feet in a year. In other places you can easily get a meter or more on a trident if they're well fertilized, well watered and in full sun. Now the tips that you see here are therefore not from sunburn, they're not from windburn. These are either from frost or from a fungal infection. I don't know which one it is. The trunk is nice and fat. There are still some chops, and the chops are from the original grower. I got this one from a trader, I think 4 years ago at the beginning of the corona pandemic, and at that time there was still a lot of space in containers. So people would buy trees in Japan, in Korea, they would be shipped to Europe, and if the container wasn't full, they'd pop in all sorts of young development stock. These trees came as bare rooted trees, just a trunk from Korea, and were very cheap at the time. Right now they're hard to get because shipping has become very expensive and there are hardly any filler trees. People fill up the container with valuable trees. Now I am lucky, I have one of these, but it means I'm closing the wounds while I am also developing the lower branches. And this is actually a bit of a tricky thing to do, because this I need to let run. I need to let a few of the lower ones run, but in top I need to keep it quite short, otherwise I get fat and heavy branches on the top again. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to look for vertical pins like this and check where they come from. Now this one is an upper canopy branch. It is connected here. So this I do not want to get any fatter. I want to keep it very light. So I'm going to remove this all the way at the base. That's gone. So the same here. So all this branching, this is a young branch coming from the side, but this one here, this is an upper canopy branch, right? This should stay very young and light. Right now, these sort of runners that come out, I can just say, well, these are the first 2 leaves from the season. I'm going to just remove it right there. Then here there is a branch that has extended with very nice short internodes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove the growing tip here. And I'm going to remove alternatingly left and right a leaf. There one and there one. So now what this does, this gets full light. These buds are activated and triggered to start pushing. Now if we look here at this sacrifice, this I don't need to have leaves at all, because this is just shading the rest of the canopy out, and if more branches come up then it even becomes bigger. cause of shade. I don't want shade, I want openness, I want the rest of the crown to develop young branches. Now here at the base I have to pay attention. These two branches could very well be the future top of the tree. So I'm going to leave all this here, because then I could prune back on this spot next year. This all is going to be removed after a year or two, once it's fattened up enough and once the wounds have healed. Now here next to it you see short internodes, really nice, but I don't want to start shooting, so I'm going to just remove the tip. This one is pushing a lot of growth. Where does it come from? So now if you look here in the canopy, it also comes from the upper trunk. I don't want this to get all heavy and big, so I'm going to remove it, including one of the leaves. Only these two buds and this one leaf remains. On the other side the same. Here's a small side branch. Here's the extension growth. Take it out, remove one of the leaves, thinning it out. This way a lot of light comes to the inside, allowing these sort of small tufts to stay alive, and I can use these later on to build the crown. Now I'm not going to defoliate completely. Complete defoliation only sets the tree back at this point. I still do want this to grow out and thicken up, right? So really, this is a vertical stalk coming all the way from down there at the edge of the callus. I don't want it. I'm just going to take this away. It just takes up space and stops air movement. So all these vertical branches that come up through the canopy, look at that. It doesn't add any value to the tree. So opening this up means that a branch like this now has a chance to survive and grow out and grow bigger. Normally this would have been all closed by branches and this would just have died over the rest of the summer. So this is what I'm aiming for, keeping those little branches on the inside. Now what you're going to find when pruning is places like this. Here you have a main branch going to the trunk, and at the base of this branch there is a little sprout forming. These I don't want there, because in fact a tree is a tree because there's not a lot of branches on the trunk that are still small with leaves, and the same here for the one below. So these I'm taking off. That way you create a lot of open space and you only leave those that you want. The same if I look a little bit to the right here. You see here is that this branch is actually growing into the canopy, yet there are small branches here on the side that go to the outside, which is a very nice replacement for this one. So this is going to go. Opening it up. This one I'm keeping, and then there's one here in the back at the same level that I'm removing. So now I've opened it up, I've removed two of the branches. I can make it a nicer cut here. This is well positioned to grow out and form part of the canopy here. This one is now opened up. You see here this still needs to close, and that's why I have this big sacrifice. Remove the leaves as said, leaving just one leaf per branch in places where it is shading out other areas or where you don't want them to fatten up that much. And straight away you get a lot better view. Note that I am trying to remove the ones that have fungal infections predominantly. I'm now almost a quarter of the way there, and what you can tell is that this area is now nice and compact. I can still thin out the leaves a little bit, allowing more light on the inside, but overall this is okay for now. Exact detailed pruning can also still be done in winter, as long as you make sure that right now the branches don't expand too much and create an overkill of heavy branches in the top. Here on the lower branches I can now start checking, because there's branches like this which look like they should go, but if I really look at it, they are forming the fatness of the branch, and this is the lowest branch in the front. Same with this one. So these two I'm going to leave on, and I'm going to remove the others that are long on the lower branch. That way I have two small sacrifice branches fattening up the lowest branch, and the rest will stay nice and compact. This branch that sits here at the base of the other branch, and if I remove this it creates a lot of open space, and it also shows me that here there's a lot of small stuff growing out of the scar tissue. This one also, especially on the front of the tree. I don't want any branches coming towards me, so this is an ideal time to remove them. so they don't create big scars. This one is still not closed, and actually I need to clean this up with the concave cutter, because this is where all these branches come from, as well as there. This needs to be gone right now. Right now the trees have had a chance to recover. They have regained the energy that they spent on growing the foliage. In fact, I hope they have boosted it a little bit. So it's nice and strong, it can respond. The weather is nice and warm. But at the same time, it is also still early enough in the year that the tree can actually grow. So until the middle of summer, trees are really good at responding, at regrowing, at opening new buds. But once you passed the longest day of the year, there is a slight risk that the tree is not going to sprout that much anymore. Now with a healthy trident, I don't really have a lot of concerns about the tree not sprouting again, but there is this risk. So this is one of the reasons why I do it right now and not later or earlier. Now I have to pay attention a little bit, because I decided that this tree is not going to be a typical Japanese tree with very flat branching, with lots of space between it. I really want to grow out a little bit like a normal, regular, deciduous tree. So let's take another peek here under the dress. Let's remove a few of these leaves so you can see a little bit better what's happening. But here as well, there's something at the base of this branch, and I don't want anything at the base of a branch. Here there's a lot of growth around the callus. I don't want all that callus growth. Here also at the base it can go. Now here there's something interesting. There's a little branch going vertically up in the canopy. This one here. There's no reason for that being there. So here again at the base of the branch, remove this growth. Now if we look here, what you see is a lot of growth coming from one point. I don't want a lot of growth coming from one point naturally, so let me just remove a few of these youngsters here. This can go. Now here there's multiple ones. I don't want the one going up, I want the sideways growing one. That is gone. Growing into the tree here in the back can all go. And now it's already cleaned up quite a bit, right? Now I remove these hanging leaves. What I'm left over is still a clutter of branches. There is 1, 2, 3, 4. This branch might actually be much better off by just being removed completely and started over, leaving less scarring. So I'm going to remove this, but not completely, hoping for new branches to form here from these buds. Now there's a lot of light here. This one is actually in the upper canopy. This all doesn't need to be all that long, so I can remove this one, remove that one including one leaf, and trim this one back as well. Still enough power, but a lot more open. And again, if I look further down at the trunk, there's a lot of side branches. So as you're pruning the apex, it's really important here to remove a lot of the leaves. This is the strongest part of the tree, and I don't want it to have the heaviest branches. So remove all these little things on the trunk, remove when there's more than 2 branches in one spot, and make sure there's lots of light on the inside, and remove a lot of the foliar capacity here. Low down you want lots of foliar capacity, up high you don't need it. The tree will recover very easily, even if you remove 80 or 90% of the foliage here and just leaving 1 or 2 leaves in the top. Make sure that if you leave branches like these to grow out, that you remove the lower leaves. This way you get less shading on the rest of the tree. All these hanging leaves can just go. I want new branches to grow anyway. And with that, the pruning of this trident maple is done for summer, and it looks a little bit awkward. There's lots of long branches sticking out, and you think, well, this doesn't really look like a bonsai, but that's okay. This is a tree in later stages of development, but still very much in development. So there's not a nice rounded canopy that you have here, because we're still closing some of these cut ones. This still needs to grow out to get a better trunk line here in the top, but also to help aid in closing those wounds. So that's basically just what we do with a tree, right? Now, some guidelines for pruning were given. In short, you know that there should never be bifurcation. Well, bifurcation is always in two. There should be no points where branch splits in more than two. So the main branch and a side branch, or two side branches going out. Everything else you remove. Everything growing into the canopy you remove. If it shades it out, you lighten it up. Trim the top much more than you would leave the bottom, than you would trim the bottom. And if you leave any sacrifice branches to fatten up any branches, that's fine. But keep in mind, remove the lower leaves so it doesn't shade it out and you get lots and lots of ventilation in the crown. With this tree is done for the season. Probably in fall I'll clean it out completely again. I'll trim everything back. But for now I'll leave this to be. If I see any big stalks growing here from the upper 5 or 10 branches, I'll trim those back, but the rest can just grow for the rest of the season. It's not going to hamper it. We've got another 3-4 months of growth if we're lucky. It will develop nicely. And over summer I hope that these cuts will close down a lot more. Because now they're still way too big. So it's the 24th of June and 3 weeks has passed. And look at this tree. There is nice, fresh, young growth all over the tree now. In fact, I might remove a few more of these damaged leaves. But really, quite pleased. So this is the result of the pruning, of the opening up. You see young branches everywhere on the inside appearing. This is set for the growing season. This was Jelle, growing bonsai with How Do You Prune a Trident Maple.